Hello. So, one thing I wanted to talk about, which I am seeing coming up in multiple mentorship containers, which is how I know it's a collective theme as well, is following your yes. And this is something we talk about in spiritual communities a lot, is following your yes, following your joy, following your expansion. But something that we don't always acknowledge is how hard it can actually be to do that, especially if we have lifetimes of programming or ancestral wounding, which is connected with that. It can actually be quite challenging, and it is probably the most crucial part of our journey on earth at this time, is to be, have that muscle exercised around following your yes, and following your yes without having the details, without having all of the, prescriptions or ideas of what we think it's going to look like, the expectations of what we think it's going to look like when we take that course of action, because we can never fully see the whole blueprint, because we wouldn't know what to do with it even if we could see it. So that's why we get this sort of we get drip fed this information. And something that people come to me often and say is, I can't hear my guides. I want to be able to hear my guides. And always what I say is, when was the last time you had an intuitive nudge about something and you didn't take action on it? Because that is how our intuitive channels shut down. That is how our stream of information that we have access to from our guides, from our spirit team, that is how that shuts down. Because if you're not listening, they're not going to keep giving you information. Your higher self isn't going to keep that channel open if you're not taking action on what has been laid before you, and those clear instructions that you've received. If you haven't taken action on those, you're not going to keep getting more information. And it's so important for us in this whole journey that we're all walking together, is that age-old axiom of know thyself, and know where it is that you are more likely to choose comfort over growth and restriction instead of expansion. Because by knowing that, by truly sitting with yourself and witnessing your patterns and being able to see where you make choices that don't actually serve you, where you cut off the song from your soul and you choose to play small rather than to truly expand, by witnessing those patterns, that is how we're able to choose differently next time. And it is fascinating to me that, of course, all of this is coming up during Mercury retrograde, because it is that time of reviewing and repairing. And something I've noticed in my own life over the years is that when I wouldn't take action on something in a Mercury retrograde cycle, it would come back the next time. The next Mercury retrograde, it would come back louder, more annoying. If I didn't do the thing, whether that was let go of a friendship or make an important change in my life, or an important change in, my lifestyle or my habits or whatever it was, if I didn't say something that I knew I needed to say to somebody, it would come back louder and more like irritating and nagging on me. And as I started to become aware of that pattern, now when things emerge for me during retrograde, I'm like, okay, just do it. Just do the fucking thing, because otherwise it's going to come back. It's going to come back around. And isn't it better to just deal with it now rather than deal with the repercussions of it later? Everything is cycles and seasons. And so in every movement, we are sowing seeds for what we are to experience in X amount of months or years. And so making these little important decisions now, honoring those senses that we get of, okay, this is my direction, honoring that and moving with that is so vital to our growth and development. Is probably the most important thing. You don't need to know all the big stories. You don't need to know all the big dramas of things that are going on in the world. That is of such little value and importance when it actually comes to your path. Following your yes is quite possibly the most important piece of the puzzle.